This is Late Night Politics on Star FM, taking an in-depth look at the Zimbabwean political scene.
Good evening, it's a Monday and it's Late Night Politics. The past week has seen the death of two national heroes who were buried on Saturday, the National Heroes Acre. MDC leader Morgan Tsvangirai cracked the whip on organizing secretary Abednego over the fallout on the assault of the party's vice president Thokozani Kupe 2 weeks ago. But it is in the People's Democratic Party that we have heard rumblings of discord coming from Bulawayo. Is the party headed for a split over the distribution of parliamentary seats as parties to the MDC Alliance conclude negotiations? To help us in our discussion, I have PDP President Mr. Tendai Biti in the studio to shed more light on the goings-on in the party. Welcome to Late Night Politics.
Good evening, George, and good evening, listeners and compatriots.
Yes, what has been Tendai Biti up to? The last time you were a prominent member of the Government of National Unity.
Well, after government, I went back to the law. And set up my own practice, Tendai Biti Law. And we've been very busy doing high-profile public interest litigation. We've got a very huge portfolio and a very fine team of young lawyers. We're very pleased that we've been able to make a mark on the law, and quite a few of our judgments you would know. I think the most famous being the case of Joyce Mujuru and Tsvangirai versus the Minister of Justice, which is the critical judgment that outlawed child marriages in Zimbabwe. We've also been involved in other critical litigation. For instance, the case of Lina Pfungwa versus Principal Belvedere Primary School. This is the case in which the High Court outlawed corporal punishment, the beating up of children, both in the home and in the school. We've also been involved in major constitutional litigation, including, for instance, the infamous case of Dare and others versus Dare, Nera and others versus the Newbert Saunyama and the Zimbabwe Republic Police. This is the case which you recall involved the police banning of public demonstrations and processions in Harare for a period of 3 months. We also have extensive linkages with international institutions. So our firm is connected to Cornell Law School in Ithaca, United States of America. And I just spent the whole of November teaching law there. We also have a link with Georgetown Law, where we are working with them on the issue of women's rights. As you know, 37 years after independence, female girls are not allowed to inherit from their father's estate or from their husband's estate, at customary law at least. We feel that is unfair. As you know, women are being prejudiced when it comes to rural land. So if a woman is married in a rural setup, when she gets divorced, she gets chased away like a dog without nothing. Women are also being prejudiced in farms that were given at the time of the land reform program. So if an offer letter is given to a husband, and upon divorce, the wife is being told that is land that belongs to the government. So she's being chased away like a dog. So we've had two terrible cases, one involving Minister Ignatius Chombo and his former wife, Marian Chombo, and the other one involving Constantine Chiwenga, General Chiwenga, and his former wife. In both cases, the two poor women were forced to walk away from the farm, which I think is wrong and unconstitutional. So this is the kind of thing that we've been doing: women's rights, political rights, children's rights, and the general rights in particular. That is what I've been doing at a legal level.
It's very interesting that one of your team members has been gushing about being mentored by you. He's in the MDCT,
Yes.
Mr. Job Sikala.
Yes.
How did you come to work with him?
Job joined us as an intern, and I see potential in him. He is full of power and passion, And sometimes you don't have to be an excellent footballer or an excellent singer or an excellent lawyer, but if you've got the passion, that will drive him. And so we are trying to mold him into a top lawyer, and I enjoy imparting my wisdom and knowledge to young people, because the greatest thing that one can do is mentorship, producing those that will follow after you. The biggest challenge in Africa is that we don't grow successors. Succession is a problem for us Africans. We can't pass the baton stick. If you go, George, to the Olympics or to the World Athletics Games that were in London recently, Africans don't do well in relays because we don't pass the baton stick. And that's a problem. We ought to be able to pass the baton sticks in politics, in law firms, even in the church. There are some churches, when we grew up, there was Bishop Guti. He is now 90-something, Bishop Guti. That's not good enough. We can do better.
Yeah, talking of politics and succession, the fallout with Mr. Tsvangirai when you were the Secretary General of the MDCT, what happened? Walk us through that.
Well, I think that things happened which both parties, regret. I think the key issue was we didn't handle the loss or defeat or stolen election of 2013 well, because it was a shock to us. So the lesson from that is that it's important when you go through a cataleptic, implosive disaster, or you lose a child, you lose a mother. It's important to reflect and to be patient and not to take harsh decisions. So that's the lesson from. But I think that the good thing is not to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone must make mistakes. The good thing is, how do you dust yourself up? How do you recover? And I've absolutely no doubt that Morgan Tsvangirai and I have found each other. I think in a way we were missing each other. I'm able to sit at his house, drive at his house without an appointment, as I used to do when I was his Secretary General. And the key thing that is critical is that we have to give our people a chance. Our people are suffering. 95% of our people are unemployed. 82% of our people are living in extreme poverty, surviving on less than US $1.25 a day. So it's criminal that 37 years after independence, the life and plight of the black person, and indeed the black woman, is worse than it was in 1952. So this government has taken us 38 years into independence. They've taken us back to the Land Apportionment Act of 1931. That's sad. So that being the case, anyone who wants to serve must know that you are not serving your ambition, must know that you are not serving your ego. You are serving the people of Zimbabwe. And what people of Zimbabwe right now want is change, is transformation in their own lifetimes. So Morgan and I are doing the right thing. Together with Welshman and others in that alliance, we have to give our people a fighting chance, particularly come the 2018 election. And it's not just about power. We will be crafting a decisive program of upliftment. And people of Zimbabwe remember what we did when we were in government. They know what, for instance, I did at the Ministry of Finance. So we have to say to the people of Zimbabwe, we can do it. We can deliver jobs. We can deliver investment. We can deliver rural development and rural transformation. It's a crime, George, that 37 years after independence, in provinces like Mat North, 79% of the people are still using the bush as a toilet. It's a crime, George, that 37 years after independence, only 30% of the total country has got electricity. I think that's wrong. Somewhere along the line, our government went to sleep, but it's fine because these guys played their part. Robert Mugabe played his part. Rutanire was buried on Saturday, played his part. Modi and her husband, Comrade Mzenda, played their part. It's our generation. So you cannot expect the nationalist generation to be the transformative generation. The challenge and obligation of transformation lies on our shoulders. And we have to do better than Robert and Simon and John Ngomo and Babangomo. We have to do better. They fought a good fight. We have to fight a better fight. And the better fight is that of transforming the lives of our people.
At one point, you were advocating, I know we are going to talk about the alliance, coalitions, and so forth, but at one time you were advocating for a transitional government, so to speak. Yes, transitional authority.
Correct.
Yes.
I still argue that, I still maintain, and we still maintain, and I'm glad that the international community is beginning to see this. I'm glad that a large part of the academia, led by people like Dr. Ibo Mandaza, is beginning to see this. We are in a crisis at the present moment. We have got the crisis of the economy, which I can speak for hours. The economy has collapsed. We have never had a poorer Minister of Finance in the 120 years of this country's existence than Patrick Chinamasa. Look at the bank queues. Look at the shortages. Look at the absence of aggregate demand in the country. The people have no money. So there's an economic crisis, but there's also a political crisis which is manifest in three phases. The first phase is the question of the person of President Mugabe. President Mugabe is 94 years of age. But the problem with people like President Mugabe is that they are founding presidents. And the problem with founding presidents in Africa, whether it's Houphouët Boigny of Côte d'Ivoire, whether it's Siad Barre of Somalia, whether it's you could put Mobutu Sese Seko in that category. You could put Mwalimu Nyerere in that category, Kenneth Kaunda in that category, Nelson Mandela in that category, and Muyoma of Namibia. The problem with these founding presidents is that they become so powerful. President Mugabe is the most powerful person in this country, and they have both de facto and de jure power. So oftentimes what happens is that they become bigger than the state, both de jure and de facto. So sometimes when they demise in the context of weak institutions, and Africa is malseated by weak institutions all along. So sometimes when they demise, the state is not strong enough to fill in the huge gap, the huge void, the huge vacuum that that is created. So sometimes the state collapses. The state shakes. So if you go to Somalia, for instance, Somalia has never been the same since the demise and the death of Siad Barre in 1991. It's now a country scattered by warlords and lowlords. The Prime Minister of Somalia should not be called the Prime Minister of Somalia. He should just be called the mayor of Mogadishu, because that's where the only space that government has got control. If you go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, there is permanent war in the east. And with great respect to Joseph Kabila, he shouldn't be called the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo. He should be called the mayor of Greater Kinshasa, defined to include Lubumbashi. Go to Côte d'Ivoire. President Houphouët Boigny. There are 6 major tribes in Côte d'Ivoire. So President Houphouët Boigny used to bribe these tribes, these chiefs and so forth. President Ouattara has been unable to do that. So there's civil war right now as I'm talking to you. So we face the same thing here in Zimbabwe. So that's danger number 1. Danger number 2 is the crisis of succession in ZANU-PF. The vicious battle between the crocodile, also known as Ngwena, also known as Lacoste, and the G40 faction. That's a fight to the bone. That's a fight to the bone. That's a fight where there is no winner. They want to wipe themselves out. The third thing is institutional weakness, and in the absence of tradition. We as a country, and particularly ZANU-PF is never, to ZANU-PF the war has never ended, and ZANU-PF has never demobilized. And the ZANU-PF, because it has never been a normal civilian institution, it has never found or taken resort to normal dispute settlement machinery, like the courts, like dialogue. ZANU's answer when it's confronted with a problem is violence. So there was violence in 1982. Instead of talking to Joshua Ngomo, there was violence, and 30,000 of our people died in Gukurahundi. In 2000, there was a conflict over land reform, and the slow pace of law and reform. Instead of talking to the leaders of the white community and the farming community, there was violence on the land. When we were formed as MDC in 1999, there's been violence constantly. So you have got a situation of a party that doesn't know violence. Secondly, you've got a situation where ZANU has never, I was talking about transition, passing the baton stick. In ZANU PF, there's never been a president who hands over power to another president. Chairman Chitepo was killed in March of 1975. Ndabaningi Stole was ejected. So there's never been a Congress where the president is actually elected at a Congress. That tradition is not there. Thirdly, on the issue of succession, we've got a weak legal framework. So we've got a constitution which ZANU PF imposed this lottery that is in the constitution, that the last acting vice president takes over for 90 days when the president is demised. So it becomes a lottery and an uncertain lottery. So all these things point to a disaster. The third component about our transition is the youth, the demographics. 79% of people in Zimbabwe are below the age of 35. I don't know what percentage is the millennials, people born after 2000. But the fact of the matter is that this is a new generation. I call them the iPad generation. You find them on Twitter, you find them on Facebook, you find them on Snapchat, you find them on Instagram. To the youth, the new weapon of mass destruction is the smartphone. But these people have nothing to do with the war. And to some large extent, they have nothing to do with our fight with ZANU PF that we started in 1999 when we formed the MDC. They want change. They want jobs. They want flat screen televisions. They want to drive smart cars, Lamborghinis and Ferrari. The nation has to talk to them. So you have got these vulnerabilities. So what is required is a holistic solution to our problem. Elections don't solve that. And electrocentric mindset, you can change leaders, but it is not going to resolve the question that we are producing less than 700 megawatts of energy when we require 4,000 megawatts of energy. You can change a leader tomorrow. Segeramai can succeed Mugabe tomorrow, or Grace Mugabe can succeed tomorrow, but it's not going to change the fact that of the 88,000 kilometers of road in Zimbabwe, less than 10% is paved. So what we need is a broad, holistic solution that allows us to deal with the national question, with the national crisis. And what is the national crisis? Number one, we have to deal with the issue of just peace and stability. There are people in this country who want to take us to war. There are soldiers in this country who can't wait to do a coup in this country. So we need peace and stability. Number two, we need a program of the restoration of the social contract. The social contract is a contract between citizens and those who are governed. Michelle is a political student. She will understand what I'm talking about. Your co-producer. So with the social contract, there's no trust in our government. We have to return and restore trust between the citizen and the state. But the trust and the relation between the citizen and the citizen is also broken. There's domestic violence. There's conflict in the church. There's conflict in business. There's conflict in civic society. If you look at our newspapers, you have got programs at this very station run by Tilda Moyo. It's bohemianism. Fathers are sleeping with 2-year-old daughters. Things that we have never heard of. So the social contract needs to be replaced between citizen and citizen. The other thing you have in this country is intolerance. People are intolerant. There's hatred between mother and father and father and mother. So we have to restore the social contract. We need a program of national healing, but not just a program of national healing. We also need a program of transitional justice, because all of us have got compartments of pain. Those of us who are political activists, we have been tortured and abused by ZANU PF. We are carrying pains. Those that, and at least we are better because we speak out. There are some who don't speak out. So we need a program of transitional justice, even if it's a weak one, like the South African Truth and Justice Commission. Our people need catharsis. Our people need an opportunity of just standing up and giving testimonies, we call it in church. Standing up and say, askana ndakarowa, askana ndakarepwa. there is a safety valve, because if we don't do that, we'll implode. The third thing is the economy. The economy is a mess. Chinamasa has created a huge fiscal mess where domestic debt is now like $6 billion. The Financial Gazette reported on Thursday that just between January and June, this government has spent $700 million offline, off budget. So we've got a disaster. So we need macroeconomic stability. Number two, we need to deal with the wage bill. 97% of government expenditure is going on the wage bill. When I was finance minister in government, I was paying 236,000 workers. There are now 550,000 employees that this government has recruited. They are ghost workers. We know what they're doing. They're working as ward officers and youth officers in the rural area campaigning for ZANU-PF. So the wage bill needs to be retrenched, and the figure of government employees need to go back to 200 or 236,000. Number four, we need to sort the mess of the financial crisis, mess of the liquidity equation. We need to state once and for all that we will maintain the multiple currency regime until we wait for a regional currency, and hopefully SADC can agree on a monetary union, and we can use a new currency, which obviously will be the rand by another name. Then we need to rebuild this country. If you wake up someone who died in 1968 in Zimbabwe, and you make him move along First Street, you won't get close because there's been no new buildings that have been built. There are no cranes in Zimbabwe. What kind of a country exists without cranes? You won't see any crane in Zimbabwe. So we need to develop. Number four, we need to deal with the unfinished business of the constitution. We've got a good constitution, but it has got terrible things. And one of the terrible things is the too much power we gave to an executive president in chapter 5 of the constitution. Number 5 is obviously aligning our laws to the new constitution. Number 6 is electoral reform, that speaks for itself. Number 7 is security sector reform, that speaks for itself. Number 8, and very critically, putting a full stop to the land question. We have to give title deeds to everyone who is farming, so that they are able to use those title deeds to go and borrow money to the banks, so that they don't continue to be continuous vassals of state patronage in unbelievably, shockingly dull schemes like command agriculture, which are just a way of looting. I call it the weaponization of food inputs and agricultural inputs.
So, Mr. Biti, who, in terms of the transitional authority, who was going to make up, if other political players had bought into it, who was going to make up the transitional authority?
Once you agree on the principle, and let me just finish with the last two. I was on number 8. The last two functions of the transitional authority. Number 9 is strengthening our institutions, in particular the judiciary, the press, and so forth, civic society, strengthening institutions, because strong institutions are the biggest guarantors of our democracy. And then lastly, a re-engagement. We have to end Zimbabwe's isolation. ZANU would call it sanctions. We have to end Zimbabwe's isolation so that we become a normal member of the international community. 10 things. Now, you ask about the mechanics of the National Transitional Authority. There are many models. The one model is that the political parties negotiate a lean and clean team, and they create a council of a supreme council to get on with the business of governance. Another model, which is preferred by academics such as Ibo Mandaza, is the model of getting technocrats. We get our technocrats, and Zimbabwe is full of technocrats. People like Mtuli Ncube, who was the chief economics of the African Development Bank during the time of Donald Kaberuka, and who is now teaching at Oxford University. People like James Manyika, who is at McKinsey in New York, and used to be on President Obama's Africa Council. People like Dr. Nobet Mugwagwa at the World Bank. People like Dr. Mbizo at the World Health Organization in Geneva. So I could give you thousands of young technocrats that could fit in. That's another model. I don't think a model which excludes politicians would work. So maybe you have a model that combines both. You have a council of ministers who are on the political decisions, and then a council of experts who are the implementers, almost like your permanent secretaries or director generals, as they are called in South Africa. What is key is agreement. So if there is agreement, it is easy to amend the constitution and to create this thing. You agree on the duration. Is it going to be 5 years or 3 years? Just like the GNU. In the GNU, we agreed We amended the constitution. We created the office of the prime minister. We created a body called the Council of Ministers. We created a body called the National Security Council because there was agreement. So two things are important: negotiation and agreement. It is in the best interest of ZANU-PF to negotiate an NTA, because after Robert Mugabe's demise, there's going to be war in ZANU-PF. Equally, it is in the best interest of the opposition to negotiate an NTA because it creates a soft landing for our country. As I said, winds of darkness are hovering over our country. There are people who want a coup. There are people who want a bloodshed. Let's deny them that. Let's deny them that opportunity of creating rivers of blood in our country by creating a soft landing called the National Transitional Authority.
So you would rather have a transitional authority than elections in 2018?
You and I know that the pillars of electoral authoritarianism are still there, and they are vicious. You and I know that ZEC, for instance, is captured. That Rita Makarau is not neutral. They are talking of a BVR, starting BVR registration in October. Now, if you go to Ghana, if you go to Nigeria, if you go to Kenya, and I'm in the process with 4 other people, we're actually writing a book on political transition in Africa. You cannot introduce BVR. You need at least two years. We are less than 1. So in Zimbabwe, the electoral spectrum is challenged by capture, coercion, and corruption. In 2013, the little thing called the voter registration slip was used against us. In places like Mashonal and Central, 45% of the population who voted were assisted voters. Even teachers and headmaster were suddenly called. So we still have to. So the election is important, but the election must be in the context of how do we manage the transition, the democratic transition, the ideological transition, and so forth. We are burying heroes. Look at the way we are burying heroes. In the last 2 weeks alone, we've had 3 or 4 funerals. That means people are going out. The old generation is going out. So we have to capture the transition. We have to harness the transition. Because if you don't harness the transition, we will be in another 40 years of morals of decay, of limping, of fudging. We don't want that. We want a nation of cheetahs, cheetah the animal, a nation that can sprint. If you go to Kenya, to Nairobi, to Nairobi, if you go to Ethiopia, to Addis, those countries are irrecognizable. If you go 800 kilometers from here to Cameroon, you can't recognize Cameroon. You can't recognize Namibia and Windhoek. We are the only country that is going in the reverse. Look at our potholes. With great respect to the Democratic Republic of Congo, we've become the pothole capital of Africa, and that's not good enough.
The program is Late Night Politics, and we are discussing the alliance in the MDC Alliance, which has seen some bumpy occurrences happening in the MDCT. There's been some resistance from some quarters, and tonight I have People's Democratic Party President, Mr. Tendai Biti, in the studio. He has also faced some ramblings from Bulawayo. We will discuss that in a short while as we try to find out, is his party going for a split, or is he going to manage that bit of ruckus happening in the PDP? Let's talk about you coming into the alliance. What prompted you to say, look, let's have an alliance? You had fallen out with Mr. Tsvangirai, and suddenly you say, let's come back together. And some in the MDCT, they might have mistrust to say, why Tendai Biti left us in a half, and he said some things, and now he's coming back. Is he just coming back because we have the numbers, or is he just coming back because he wants a position? What is the true picture here?
Look, as I said before, we have to put our people first. When we went to Mandela, this was the PDP's inaugural council. When we went to Mandela, we said that Zimbabwean politics needed a rebirth. We said that Zimbabwean politics needed a renewal. In fact, our name was MDC Renewal. We said that we need a new narrative. And we identified 3 things on that narrative. 3 things that are critical today as they were in 2014. Number 1, we say that no political party in Zimbabwe can singularly dislodge ZANU-PF. So you will recall in 2013, the MDC was so powerful. We had a rally, what we call the crossover rally at Freedom Square on the 28th of July 2013. I think we had over 50,000 to 80,000 people there. But we lost takarwa nezveusiku nezvinyawu unoza zvinyawu zvekudzivaresekwa nanyamadaura. And up to now we don't know what hit us. So we said, look, let's introduce something new in Zimbabwean politics, which is the language and dialogue and discourse of unity or convergence. Number two, we said Zimbabwean politics has been dominated by individuals. Zimbabwean politics has been dominated by the absence of issues. In elections in other countries, people fight over issues. Are you going to raise the rate of interest, or you're not going to raise the rate of interest? In the American election that was fought out on the 8th of November last year, the key issues were around the environment. The key issues were around immigration, with the Donald Trump saying, I'm going to build what I call a wall of hatred between Mexico and the United States of America. We need to introduce that discourse. Political parties need to be judged on the issue of issues. Who has got the better program? Who can transform Zimbabwe? Who has got the better international connection to make a difference in Zimbabwe? The third matrix, we said, look, we have been dominated by powerful individuals like Robert Mugabe, like Rex Nongo, and so forth. Let's form a team. Let's form Team Zimbabwe. Let's form Team Zimbabwe. There are fantastic Zimbabweans out there, and we can build a team. So we've been preaching the doctrine of unity. So right from the word go, we negotiated what was called the Coalition for Democrats. I wrote the constitution. I coined the phrase code. You also recall that in November 2014, on the 26th of November, we had a memorandum of agreement to reunite us and MDC, led by Professor Walshman Ngube. When ZANU-PF ejected Dr. Joyce Mujuru and other stalwarts like Didmas Mutasa, Rugare Gumbo, and others, we said, us in the post-liberation movement, we've been missing, in the post-liberation democratic movement, we've been missing the liberation component. But the liberation component is key to our struggle. And so we coined the equation, the past plus the present equals the future. And we argued, as we still do now, that wherever there's been a successful transition in Africa, the old order has worked with the new order. So if you go to Ghana, for instance, where President Kofua defeated the old order represented by Flight Lieutenant or President Jerry Rawlings, as you would like to be known. But President Kofua had young people, including the current president, Nana Ato-Aito, including the Vice President Bohemia, who are very young people. But President Kofua was a junior minister of finance in President Kwame Nkrumah's government at the time of Ghana's independence in 1958. If you go to Kenya formed a coalition in 2002. The coalition was formed in August when the election was in December. There were young people like Rara Odinga and even younger people like Ruto, like James Orengo, but they chose Bakili Muluzi. Bakili Muluzi, who had been both a minister of finance under Daniel Arap Moi's government and also a minister under Mzee Kenyatta's government. So we needed the old component, and that's why we embraced Mrs. Mujuru. So here there's now an opportunity. In the MDC Alliance, there's now an opportunity of bringing the two main splinters of the MDC, PDP and Welshman Ngube, but also bringing the liberation component in the form of Mrs. Mujuru. And you know, as I do, that NPP led by Joyce Mujuru is actually in negotiations with the NPP. We want everyone together. And that's what we are doing. We have to give our people a chance. And as I've been saying in my writings, the idea of unity is not negotiable. The idea of convergence is not negotiable. We can negotiate the terms of entry. Let's negotiate and fight over seats, over regalia, over the name of the alliance. Let's do that until we find an answer. If I had my own way, I've been a negotiator, I would close all of us in a room until we come up to an agreement. If we fail, let's have an intercessor from outside. Let's call President Ian Kama, who is now retired, to come and intercede behind us. If we trusted Thabo Mbeki, would call him, but we don't trust him. But maybe we can trust Mole Mbeki. He should come and intercede here. Let's call President Jijaya Kikwete of Kenya to come and intercede until we find a solution as opposition parties. We don't have time. And our people don't have time. Vanhu vari kusafa mukoma musumbu. Vanhu vari kusafa. Vanhu vanuna nenhamo so.
Alliance and coalition, the difference. What is the difference here? Because this is a political program, and besides our discussion, people also learn new things, and so our population
It's a very important question.
Yes.
It's a very important question. Right now, the term is being used loosely. The term alliance and coalitions are being used loosely. But in political economy terms, the two don't mean the same thing. With a coalition, you agree on substantive issues. You agree on a big program. And you even agree on the program you'll implement when you are in government. That's a coalition. So if you look at CODE, the Coalition for Democracy, it's a very substantive document. People agreed on values, people agreed on principles, people agreed on a mission statement, people agreed on a vision and so forth. And people agreed to be bound together by a minimum code of discipline. That's with so a coalition is more cohesive. You are all accountable to each other and so forth. Whereas with an electoral alliance tend to be loose. And with an electoral alliance, you can actually say, we as political parties, we will retain our identity and fight elections in different parts of the corner, but we agree to support one individual as the presidential candidate. But this party will get its own seats, and when we win, we actually negotiate again the government. So it's very loose. In the context of the MDC Alliance, certain things are now becoming so obvious. I haven't seen the actual agreement itself because we've got a negotiating team. But certain things are becoming more obvious to people that it can't be an alliance, it has to be a coalition. And I'll tell you one of them. Our election is actually a proportional election, but at provincial level. So even though we choose MPs on the basis of first past the post, the MP of Kuadzana, the MP of Budiriro, the MP of Glenview, the MP of Harare East, but that vote has got proportional consequences. So there are 70 seats that are in the lower house in parliament that are chosen by basis of proportional representation, and it's 5 per province. So if a party gets 70% of the votes in a province, it is likely to get 3 out of the 5 seats that are reserved for proportional representation. Come to the Senate as well. Your percentage vote in the first past the post matrix also determines how many of the 5 senators of that province you get. So it means that if political parties and if a coalition or alliance wants to maximize on proportional representation, all of you have to work together. So you can't say I'm a member of the alliance, but I am PDP, I'm MDCT, I'm MDCN, I'm ZimPF. That is becoming obvious to people because, in fact, we have got a system of proportional representation. It is also becoming obvious that it's not possible to have an electoral alliance without defining the 3 possible scenarios from next year's election. Either there's going to be an outright defeat, but if there's an outright defeat, you can't stop and say, we will wait 2 years ago, as we are doing now, 2 years ago to 2023 before we start planning for another election. It's better that you say, guys, if this scenario happens, we are fighting immediately. We know that ZANU-PF can only win through fraud and stealing, so let's start delegitimizing them. So we start having campaigns. Some of us have got friends overseas. We start going to Brussels. We start going to New York. I'm not sure I should be saying this, but that's what we will do. The second scenario is an outright win. If you win, it's a big problem. It's probably a bigger challenge than the first one. Because governing is is a problem. You're going to fight over ministerial seats. You're going to fight over deputy ministers. You're going to fight over executive positions. But the biggest challenge is, what's your program of action? How do you implement it? And I've been government. You have to have a plan. I got into government. We didn't have a plan of action as MDC. Things happened too quickly to us. And on my first day in government, on the 16th of February, I greeted the permanent secretary, Willard Manungo, a fine man he is. I greet some of the directors, including the principal director of budgets, Fungwa Kunaka. He says to me, Minister, welcome. Tomorrow is payday. Wow, tomorrow is payday. How much do we have to pay? 30 million, say. How much do we have in the bank? 4 million, say. Where are we going to get the 26 million, Mr. Kunaka? We were waiting for you, say. It wasn't a joke. So I realized that we needed a plan. And that's why on that very same day, I started writing the short-term emergency recovery program. So winning is actually a bigger challenge than losing, because you now have to run the state. The third component is, what if there's talk of another GNU or another transitional authority? Because remember, ZAM is at war as well. So we have to have answers in all this scenario. The biggest generals are not the brilliant generals. The greatest generals are the ones who pay attention to detail. And that's my function. That's going to be my function in this coalition, to provide that cutting-edge technical expertise and to pay attention to detail, because that is the skill that God gave me. Morgan Tsvangirai has got the skill of being loved by our people. That's the skill that we're going to take away from him. Welshman Nube is an all-rounder, and others, everyone is going to play a role.
But now, what is happening? In Bulawayo, there are ramblings there to say, no, you are making agreements with Mr. Tsvangirai, but we didn't agree to those, and you are not negotiating in good faith. You are probably doing it. This is coming from members of your party.
Yeah, three things. The first thing is that as Tendai Biti, I'm an international lawyer. I now know one or two things about economics. I'm a fellow of a major international think tank called the Center for Global Development in Washington, D.C. And I've been fighting with my colleagues we've been saying, come, let's work for us. I'm an expert in what are called the economics of fragile states. You know, there are no more governments. You know, Zambia has no more governments. But there are things that are called fragile state, and Zimbabwe is a fragile state. And there are some people who think I did a good job. So I don't need Zimbabwean politics. I don't need a seat. I run a successful law firm. I'm doing this for Zimbabwe, and my colleagues understand that. We had a critical meeting on Friday, the 25th of August. Critical meeting, and people had the right to ask questions. When we came up with our party induct, we came up with a common position. Yes to unity. Let's negotiate what is fair for us. And so our negotiators will conclude negotiations this week. Our negotiators, our Secretary General, Gordon Moyo.
He's on the team.
Yes, of course. Yeah, and he's the leader of that team. Jacob Mafume, Settlement Chikwinya, and Baba Benson Tini, a church elder at the Seventh-day Adventist. And we all agreed that the issue of unity is not negotiable. What is key is that let's negotiate that which is fair to us. And that which is fair to us is not to give us 2 seats or 8 seats, but it is also not to give us 100 seats or 50 seats, because we are a party that was only formed 2 years ago. So I said to them, we can't reap where we have not sown, but equally no one is good. So we just want fairness and so forth. Our colleagues, I've had extensive discussions with Morgan Tsvangirai. He understands that. Watchman Ngube is intelligent enough to understand that. It has to be difficult, Mkoma George. Because we are doing the right thing, it must be difficult. Jesus came to democratize religion. Jesus came to transform religion. It was difficult. They ended up killing him. So anything that is good must have resistance. And so the resistance and the force that has come from ZANU-PF opposing this alliance has convinced me as Tendai Biti that this is the correct thing to do. And I am very clear, Mkoma George. the idea of an alliance with Morgan Tsvangirai is the correct thing to do. And I'm clear. The members of my party understand that this is what we are going to do. And if it's wrong, a Congress will come, they will fire me. That's how democracy works. But for now, as long as I'm the leader of this party, elected by the people at a convention on the 11th of September 2015, we are going to go into this alliance because it is the right thing to do. But equally, we must negotiate fair points of entry vis-a-vis things around seats and so forth. And there are many seats. People are just focusing on parliamentary seats. What about provincial governance? People have forgotten that we've got a constitution which in chapter 14 talks of devolution. The fact that ZANU-PF has refused to implement devolution doesn't mean that after 2018 we won't do that. So I've been involved in conflict situations throughout my life, in negotiating throughout my life. You don't negotiate with your friend. You don't negotiate with your mother. You don't negotiate with yako. You negotiate with an opponent. And you don't go to a negotiating table without a give and take attitude. You have to give something. Because negotiations is a forum of the week. All of you need something. Because if you can get something from someone, then you go it alone. So in 2007, we negotiated with ZANU-PF. What did ZANU-PF want? They'd failed to run the economy. They thought there were sanctions, and they thought we could remove them. What did we want from ZANU-PF? We wanted to get into government, to use government as a means of removing the electoral humps imposed by electoral authoritarianism in our country. Tikano negotiate. So kana uchinegotiata, unotonegotiata. Kwete nehama yako ba. That's what we're doing. But it's a good process that is happening. And many people don't understand. This process of the opposition working together is so good for the country because our people expect us to work together, including even with ZANU-PF. When I walk in the streets, I get mobbed by people. So, but people remember nostalgically. At the time, they didn't understand fire. But when the GNU is gone, they now know Vanabiti were magicians, and we were magicians because we were clever, we were smart, and we put our people first, and we were tough. The first word that used to come out of my mouth was a no. Even when Mgabe wataura, no, Mr. President, and I was firm. And people know that that's what you do. I invented the phrase: "You eat what you kill." You can't catch a red car and eat an elephant. As you go, 1 minus 2 only works in mathematics. In real life, 1 minus 2 it can't.
So even Mr. Mkwananzi was there, George Mkwananzi was there, he said his piece. So we had
a difficult meeting, but an excellent meeting. And there was unanimous position. It was not a majoritarian position. There was a unanimous position that we go this way.
Okay.
Yes.
One other issue that came, that hogged the media limelight last week was your former colleague in the government of national unity, Mrs. Priscilla Mshonga, saying the alliance it's a men's club. Why are there no women?
But it's a very fair criticism. It's a very fair criticism. Our constitution says that. In anything we do, there must be 50% women. But as I said, this is a process. This thing is a process. It's a journey. So that was just the beginning. She's my mother, Mrs. Mushonga. She knows that we are talking to the Women's Coalition. She knows that there are talks right now with the Joyce Mujuru. So if that was the conclusion, if that was the end game, yes, I'll be angry with her and I'll join with her. But I know it's a process. We want other women, including her, including Marceline Chikasha, and so forth. so it's a work in progress. As I said before, we want everyone on board. We want everyone on board. So it's a work in progress, and I think that she has made the criticism, but she must now join us to undo the wrong impression created by 7 very ugly men standing up at the Zimbabwe grounds. On the 5th of August, 2017.
Yeah, talking of women entering politics, you obviously are encouraging it.
And young people.
Yes, and young people.
So I'm very excited by the entry of Fadzaima.
Yes, the independent
I'm very
candidates.
excited People like Morini Kademaunga, I hope they will enter the fray. I would like to see Pastor Ivan Mawarire there. I would like to see Promisi Mkwananzi there. I would like to see all the young people in Tajamuka there. And I've said to Morgan Tsvangirai, we have to give them space. This thing that the future belongs to the youth is a fiction. Macron is the president of France. Is 39 years. I was an MP at age 32. So it's fiction. Let's give them the button stick now.
And one other issue that always comes up is that from Matabeleland there seems to be a perception that Harare wants to make decisions for the region.
Yes.
Is there an understanding now?
It's a fair criticism. It was created by ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF has marginalized that region. ZANU-PF has alienated Matabeleland. ZANU-PF has reified Matabeleland. When I was in government, I used to conduct public consultations on the issues of the budget. So I used to go everywhere. Mat South, Gwanda, Mat North, Victoria Falls, Bulawayo. I used to have my meetings at the Holiday Inn. And I can tell you that my first meetings, I was shocked because it was like I was talking to people from another country because of the sense of alienation. You tell me, what is the justification of someone who lives in Beitbridge having to go to Mukwati here to get a passport? Why can't that happen in Beitbridge? Why can't that happen in Harare? If you apply for a loan in Bulawayo, at let's say Bank ABC, you are told that head office has to approve. So it's absolutely nonsense, and ZANU has created that. So the people of Matabeleland have got a right to feel that they are alienated and isolated. That is why some of us are so strong on devolution. That is why some of us are so strong on decentralization. There is no country that I know in the world which is successful, which is not devolved or decentralized. The United States of America is a United States of states. There are 52 states in America. And each one of them has got a governor, has got a state legislature, has got a state parliament, and has got a local government. The German, the most powerful country in Europe, is a federal state. Here in Africa, the most powerful country is South Africa. It has got 9 provinces with provincial premiers, with the provincial members of government and of parliament. Zimbabwe needs to do that. And I want to emphasize that I am not for the secession or the breakup of this country. I am for a strong, devolved state within unitary boundaries. I need to emphasize that. But we need decentralization. So yes, the people of Matabeleland need to feel alienated. But they must also understand that the poverty you see in Ngai, in Cholocho, you also see it in Mzarabani. You also see it in Dotito. You also see it in Odzani. You also see it in Chivi. You also see it in Mapanzure, in Mashingo. You also see it in Kwa Bora, Kwa Roads, Kwa Mrewa. ZANU has not monopolized poverty in Matabeleland only. Poverty is distributed equally. That's why we have to get rid of them, so that we give Zimbabwe a fresh start and fresh hope.
An interesting discussion on late night politics. Tonight, a former finance minister in the government of national unity. He's also the People's Democratic Party president, Mr. Tendai Biti. We are discussing issues across the political sphere of Zimbabwe, and we've talked of for his fallout with Mr. Tsvangirai, coming back together again, the reconciliation, the alliance, the coalition, the difficulties in negotiating an alliance from within the parties. And we've even talked about the Matabeleland issue. We have talked about the women's vote and so forth. Let's talk about Harare East. Are you going to be contesting in Harare East?
I am not sure. You know, I've been an MP for 15 years. So, you know, it's a seat that has been given to the PDP. So we'll make a final decision on that. But for me, I think that there's actually value for me to contest in a rural election, in a rural seat, because I can make a difference. I can't build a ball in Harare East because I represent my own place. I represent the Highlands, the most affluent suburbs in the country. Of course, there's 46 in Mavugo, which is poor. But if I were to stand in a rural area, I will make a difference. So, and I also am not decided whether I actually want to stand, but my party will decide.
Oh, if it's in the rural areas, where in particular do you feel that your services will be of great value?
I think between Dotito and Chendambuya.
Mm.
And the guy.
Yes, Chendambuya, you love that that area.
It's a very poor area. Headlands in Chendambuya is a poor area. You need a 4x4 to access those roads.
Okay.
So that's why you know I speak of Dotito. Dotito is also another poor area. Dotito in Chendambuya.
You talk to Mr. Tsvangirai and you talk to Mrs. Mujuru.
Yes, I do.
And they seem to be a sticking point in who wants to lead the coalition there. Are you going to be negotiating, or what's your take on the current scenario where there's a sticking point?
There will be accommodation. There will be accommodation. If we, there will be accommodation. If we do win, one will be a president, we'll create the position of a prime minister. That's a non-issue to me. It's a non-issue to me. They're all lovely persons. Mrs. Mujuru is the warmest person you can ever talk to. She's the aunt that everyone wants to hug. She's so warm. The first time I went to her house on the 12th of January last year, we were supposed to have a meeting from 2 o'clock. But the meeting had to start at 1 o'clock because I was rushing to court. There was an urgent application in the High Court. And she had prepared lunch and she insisted that I have her lunch. Only my grandmother would do that. So she's very warm. Mr. Tsvangirai is a natural father. If my father had been alive, they would have been the same age. So I'm very much excited by the prospect of bringing both Joyce and Morgan together. So too, the other little-known guys like Farai Mbira, Gilbert Zikiti, Maslin Chikasha, my old friend Elton Mangoma. Let's all come together because we've got one opponent which is ZANU-PF. Zvekuti tumasitsi uro takamborovana kudhara. Let's put that aside because we've got a duty to liberate our people. So I'm very much excited about what we're trying to build. But of course, it's not easy, and we have to look up to God to help us. And in everything we do, we have to put God first.
I managed to attend former Deputy Prime Minister's Arthur Mtambara's book launch, yes. And one of the criticism that he has is that you guys, you are not writing books, you are not, you have a very rich experience in negotiating before the GNU, during the GNU, and so forth. But where's the book?
I know it's coming. I mean, look, I probably have lived 5 lives. So one of the things that is understated is my own achievements as a lawyer. So I'm putting together my cases, the cases that I've done, the privilege of representing Dabaningi Stole, the privilege of representing Margaret Dongo, doing the first ever constitutional case in Zimbabwe, which is the case called In Remono Mesu, which is a case in which our court held that Section 6 of the Law and Order Amendments Act was unconstitutional, the ZCTU case. I've had so many, I've had such a rich legal life. So I want to do that. The one I've written now, which has got 67,000 words, which I've not completed, is the story of my life in the GNU. So I'm busy writing that. But as I indicated earlier, I'm also writing a book on political economy with 4 other people, including Professor Greg Mills from South Africa and President Obasanjo from Nigeria. And we hope that it will come out before the end of the year. It's a question of time. If I had my own way, I would actually love to teach at a university and just write books. And I hope the time will come very soon, because that's my real passion. And I've got a lot to give because I know so many things in so many fields, whether it's the law, whether it's the economics, whether it's political economy, and whether it's fighting dictatorships, because there's none more subtle, more vicious, more intelligent, more cunning than Robert Mugabe.
I will not release you, Mr. Biti, before you send a message of peace. We are going to 2018. Let's have peace. I want a message of peace from you as the campaign season starts.
Yeah, I want to say to fellow Zimbabweans that the most important thing upenyu wacho. The most important thing muupenyu hunu wedu ubuntu, or as our Section 50 of our Constitution says dignity. So as we enter into this election, hatifaniri kuurayana, hatifaniri kurovana. There is no politician. There's no politician with the killing for. There's no politician with killing for. There's no politician with making someone lose a limb. Let's love each other. We've got a beautiful country. Let's put love ahead of us. And I say this to members of ZANU-PF. I say this to members of the opposition. We've got one country and one country alone. So let's preserve it. And we've got one people. Let's love each other. And I want to end by the remarks of the late Dr. John Ngomo. Peace begins with you. Peace begins with us. Peace begins with all of us. And those are fundamental words.
Thank you very much to the People's Democratic President, Mr. Tendai Biti. He's also former finance minister in the government of national unity. And we were discussing a whole lot of issues on late night politics. Very interesting discussion. But of course, when the book comes out, I also want to be the first to interview you on that one. It must have been a very interesting period, the negotiations and the GNU. Exciting times. You also came into government. It was exciting time for Zimbabweans that new faces also came in to blend with all the faces. But we want to find the nitty-gritties to know what exactly was transpiring. How did you negotiate with Mr. Patrick Chinamasa, Comrade Patrick Chinamasa?
We used to fight. We threw water at each other on the 18th of June, 2007, at the Santon International Hotel. We used to fight.
That will be another talking point on late night politics. Thank you to a very interesting man, Mr. Tendai Biti, for coming through. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Late Night Politics on Star FM, taking an in-depth look at the Zimbabwean political scene. Join us again next week, Monday, same time on Star FM. Tune in to Star FM every Monday night for Late Night Politics, brought to you by Star FM News and Current Affairs. From 11 p.m. till midnight for riveting, engaging political discussions. Meet Zimbabwe's political players as they square off live on Zimbabwe's leading radio station. Your Monday late nights will never be the same again. Late Night Politics on Star FM, leading the pack and sounding good all the time. You've been listening to Late Night Politics on Star FM, taking an in-depth look at the Zimbabwean political scene. Join us again next week, Monday, same time on Star FM.